For centuries, critics of Islam have claimed that the Quran contradicts itself regarding the gospel. They argue that if the gospel was corrupted, why would the Quran tell Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, to consult the people of the book? Does this create an unsolvable dilemma? Or is there a deeper truth that they are missing? In this video, we'll break down these misconceptions and reveal what the Quran actually says about the gospel. Refuting the claims about the Quran and the gospel, Injil. The article makes several claims about contradictions in the Quran's stance on the gospel, Injil. Let's analyze and refute them one by one. 1. Does the Quran contradict itself regarding the gospel? Response: there is no contradiction. Islam acknowledges that God originally revealed the Torah and the gospel, but over time, these scriptures were altered through additions, omissions, and distortions. However, this does not mean that everything in them is false. The Quran recognizes that some truths remain, particularly those that align with monotheism. The issue is not with the entire gospel, but with its reliability after centuries of changes. 2. Does the Quran give an impossible command? Response: the verse cited, Quran 10 hours 94 minutes, states, "So if you are in doubt, O Prophet, about what we have revealed to you, then ask those who have been reading the scripture before you. The truth has certainly come to you from your Lord, so do not be of those who doubt." This verse is not about relying on the gospel for theological guidance, but about confirming historical events, such as the stories of past prophets. The Quran reassures Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, that previous scriptures contain similar narratives, proving continuity in divine revelation. Furthermore, the verse does not indicate that the prophet was in doubt. It is a rhetorical device emphasizing the certainty of the revelation. The Quran often uses such expressions for emphasis, not because the prophet actually needed validation. 3. How can one distinguish between the preserved and corrupted parts? Response: Islam provides clear criteria for identifying what parts of previous scriptures are authentic. Consistency with monotheism. Any passage affirming the oneness of God and rejecting human deification is more likely to be preserved. Alignment with past revelations. Teachings that match the messages of previous prophets are more trustworthy. Comparison with the Quran. Since the Quran is the final, unaltered revelation, it serves as the ultimate criterion for assessing previous scriptures. Muslims do not reject the entire gospel, but critically evaluate it in light of the Quran. 4. Does the Quran prohibit comparing scriptures? Response: on the contrary, the Quran encourages it. In several verses, the Quran challenges the people of the book, Jews and Christians, to compare their scriptures with the Quran to recognize distortions. Do not mix truth with falsehood or conceal the truth while you know it. Quran 2:42. Say, bring the Torah and recite it if you are truthful. Quran 3 hours 93 minutes. These verses demonstrate that the Quran calls for scriptural comparison, not blind acceptance. Thus, the claim that the Quran forbids comparison is false. 5. Does the Quran contradict itself on the gospel's authority? Response: the argument that Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, needed the gospel to verify his revelation is flawed. Consider the following points. He brought a new revelation. The Quran is not merely a copy of past scriptures, but a completion and correction of previous revelations. The Gospels were already inconsistent. By the 7th century, multiple versions of the Gospels existed, proving that they had undergone alterations. The Quran is the preserved standard. Unlike earlier scriptures, the Quran remains unchanged since its revelation, making it the most reliable reference. The Quran does not suggest that Prophet Muhammad needed to consult the Gospel for religious guidance. Rather, it affirms the continuity of God's message while correcting distortions. 1. The Quran does not contradict itself. It acknowledges that parts of the Gospel remain true, while others have been altered. 2. The command in Quran 10 hours 94 minutes refers to confirming historical events, not relying on the Gospel for doctrine. 3. Islam provides clear standards for distinguishing between authentic and altered scripture. 4. The Quran encourages comparing scriptures, not rejecting them outright. 5. Prophet Muhammad did not need validation from a gospel. His revelation was the final and most preserved message. The claims against the Quran are based on misinterpretations and false assumptions. When analyzed critically, the Quran's message remains consistent, logical, and historically supported. As we've seen, the Quran is not caught in a contradiction. It presents a consistent and logical stance on previous scriptures. It acknowledges that some truth remains in the gospel, but warns against distortions. The Quran does not rely on past scriptures for validation. Rather, it confirms and corrects them. The real question is not whether the Quran is flawed, but whether those who raise these objections are truly seeking the truth. If you're ready to explore beyond the misconceptions, start by reading the Quran for yourself.